Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to analyze Viktor Gyokeres' impact in the final third following the previous international break and highlight areas that the Swedish striker can improve to help bolster Arsenal's attack in their Premier League title pursuit. So when we break it all down and we do look at the board, we have what should be Arsenal's best 11 going forward. The issue that we've had this season is that they've suffered several injuries and we haven't been able to see the starting 11 feature on a consistent basis. Nevertheless, we're focusing on Gyokeres here, who has the task of operating in that central role, occupying two center backs. And the first thing that we're going to address here is the myth that he's creating space for Saka to get more 1v1s. In many of these scenarios, yes, he is in between two center backs, but he often drifts to one side and he's occupying one of the center backs, and it leaves the other center back free because there isn't an Arsenal attacking midfielder pushing forward into the box. And the only time that we have really seen that when Gyokeres has played is when Marino features in that midfield zone and he's looking to add numbers in towards the penalty area and make late runs in towards the box. But for the most part, Saka's getting into these 1v1s due to the movement of Odegaard making sharp runs in behind the fullback, or Timber making overlapping and underlapping runs to drag the opposing side's wide player with him. So now when we examine Gyokeres closely, his start to his life at Arsenal hasn't been poor. He has recorded 3 goals for Arsenal in the Premier League. However, you do feel like there's a sense that he should be providing more. Now when you look at what he does right, he does have this knack of receiving the ball comfortably from his chest and below, where he's able to hold off pressure and guide the ball towards his teammates within close proximity. And we've witnessed this on countless occasions with his back to goal in those scenarios. And the great thing about this is that he's doing it in every third of the pitch. And what you often see is that there isn't much pressure being applied towards him, but there's enough that it could force him to make a mistake. But he does a very good job of receiving the ball and then laying it off to his teammates within close proximity. And if you want to look to one example in particular, you can see the ball being played into him in the penalty area against Olympiacos. He locates Marino and Trossard making runs near him, and he ends up playing the ball around the defender for Trossard breaking in towards the penalty area. However, when Trossard receives the ball in that zone, he plays a wayward cross beyond Martinelli, breaking free at the back post. In the same breath, if you focus on one of Gyokeres' weaknesses, we highlight that when he does have his back to goal in aerial duels and Arsenal look to be direct, when they attempt to play long balls in towards them, he struggles to win those aerial duels in isolated situations against center backs. Whether it be him with his back to goal and simply looking to nod it on or bring it down, he's incapable of doing that consistently. And at times when the ball is punted in beyond him, when he's looking to chase it, there was one incident with Lucas Paquetá where he's looking to chase it down, and he has the physical strength and the speed to outmatch Lucas Paquetá, but he fails to do that. And with some pressure, he's incapable of retaining the ball, and he allows the defender to come across to make it a 1v2, but still Lucas Paquetá does a very good job of winning possession there. However, in several scenarios, specifically against Newcastle, when he went 1v1 against those center backs and looked to back in towards them to flick on the ball or simply win these aerial duels, he failed to win those challenges when the center backs were applying pressure to him from behind. And there are just several scenarios where you think Gyokeres is capable of using his strength and his ability to back in defenders where he could win these challenges. But against Newcastle, the center backs simply outmatched him on several occasions. Against City, there were times where he simply was incapable of winning aerial duels. And there was one example against Olympiacos where a long ball was played over the top. It looked like he was going to break free on goal, and he simply failed to bring the ball down successfully. And he was outnumbered by Olympiaco recovering defenders. And that simply sums up Gyokeres when he's looking to win aerial duels with his back to goal or looking to break in behind. He often loses them to center backs that simply tower over him, and he simply showcased his inability to win these duels on a consistent basis. Oddly enough, it's in the middle third where Gyokeres has been causing his most impact, and that's simply him dropping off center backs to receive the ball in space and linking play with his teammates. And in these scenarios, he's been a very useful outlet for Mikel Arteta, where you simply just see him dropping off into spaces in that middle third, whether it be at the halfway circle or the halfway line. He does a very good job of inviting pressure towards him, and from there, he's been a very useful outlet for Mikel Arteta's attack. And to no surprise, it's with his feet where he's comfortably doing a very good job in receiving the ball and then guiding runners in beyond him to break in transition, or sliding the ball out and towards wider areas to help get his teammates involved and help build attacks. There was one example in particular against City where you see Declan Rice playing a ball around the press, and it's Gyokeres inviting pressure towards him at the halfway line. And from there, you could see the movement where he's looking to guide the ball in towards Marino and has created the space for Trossard to break into to exploit that City high line. From there, Marino receives the pass from Gyokeres, but Marino's final ball in towards Trossard is slightly overhit, and City are able to halt that attack. But nevertheless, in several scenarios throughout these last few games, when Gyokeres is dropping in towards that middle third, there's often no pressure towards him, and from there he's capable of linking play with his teammates and ensuring that Arsenal have an outlet to break in towards the final third by receiving the ball and then getting teammates involved by having them receive his layoffs and breaking forward in towards the final third. And in the same breath, if Arsenal are looking to get runners in behind, he's creating space for them to break into, and simply with his passing ability when he receives the ball in these zones, he has no problem sliding the ball out towards the wide areas to get those wide players in 1v1s, or simply have Arsenal attempt to make overloads out in those zones so that he could be the beneficiary in terms of getting onto the final delivery of what's being created out in those wider areas. There were two examples against Forest where it was Gabriel building out of the back, and he simply bypassed the midfield bank to find Gyokeres dropping off the center backs, and Gyokeres from there takes a first touch and guides the ball out and towards the wider area to help Arsenal break in towards the final third. And shortly after that, with two players near Gabriel, he's able to play the ball into Gyokeres, who drags a marker towards him, but simply slides the ball first time in towards Calafiori. And from there, Arsenal have bypassed the Nottingham Forest press, and now they could break forward in towards their half. If we shift to another positive, what we see from Gyokeres is that he's a willing runner and looks to break in towards the channels, whether it be the left or the right. So that means he's stretching the back lines, especially the ones that like to play a bit higher. And what you end up seeing is that over on the left-hand side is where he seems a bit more comfortable, as he's capable of breaking in towards those zones. And if the pass is on, then what he does a very good job of doing is retaining possession and helping bringing teammates in towards the game. And when he makes those runs in towards the left channel opposed to the right-hand side, he does a very good job and looks more comfortable in terms of serving that role for Mikel Arteta in bringing teammates in towards the final third to get them into positions where they can create or serve as goal threats. Whereas when you look to the right-hand side in comparison to the left, he's less impactful in those zones. And yes, there was the time against Olympiacos where he was looking to break in towards the final third, but pressure did arise and he did look to drop the ball back off to Ben White. But outside of that, whenever he was making runs in towards right half space in the penalty area, he failed to have any sort of impact or get a shot off on goal, and at the very least he could have combined with teammates but failed to do that as well. However, in terms of breaking in towards that channel to serve as a goal threat, he simply lacks the execution and the killer instinct in the final third, and we have several examples to showcase Gyokeres getting into good positions from his teammates and simply failing to get into a good goal scoring position, or when he's placed in space to get into a good goal scoring position, he ends up slowing down the play and then lacking the execution, whether it being a pass towards a teammate or simply failing to get a shot on goal when he had enough space to do so. Look to an example against Newcastle where he's played in free down the right channel and he simply has a 1v1 against a Newcastle defender, and the issue that he encounters here is that he lacks the pace to break free on goal. He has the 1v1 with the defender showing him space towards the penalty area, but he simply fails to beat the defender for pace and attempts to cut back towards his left, and he fails to beat the defender and he loses the ball. Against City, Timber does a very good job of splitting and breaking the back line to find Gyokeres making a run in between the two center backs. He's tracked by the center back into right half space and ends up turning backwards, and he has Marino free at the edge of the box and he drags another defender towards him, but when he attempts to play that pass in towards Marino, the pass is short and the center back steps in to win possession, and that halts the Arsenal attack. The best example is against Athletic Club, where you end up seeing a long ball being played over the top and Gyokeres is breaking free at the halfway line on goal. From here, you see how much space he has on his first touch to break in towards the penalty area, but by the time he gets towards his second touch, you could see that the Athletic Club defenders are recovering. He ends up guiding the ball towards his left, which allows the center back to recover his position, and that ultimately speeds up the Arsenal striker and forces him to take a low quality shot from a tight angle at the keeper. So while it's clear that Gyokeres is comfortable against a mid block or a high line, when he's tasked with going up against a deep block that applies applies pressure towards him around the penalty area. When he's tasked with the role of linking with his teammates, that's where you end up seeing some deficiencies. You see players trying to play balls in towards him, and when he's looking to play the return pass, he simply can't do that. In terms of playing runners that are breaking him beyond him, the space is tight and he's incapable of finding his teammates making those runs in towards those zones. You have scenarios where simply his first touch isn't very good, and that allows the opposing side to get numbers around him to help win possession off of him, and that has happened on a few occasions. There's an example against City where you could see Zubamendi playing the ball in towards him and he's dropping off the center back. The center back doesn't step near him. You can see that Marino's looking to make a run off Rodri, who's ball watching, and while Gyokeres can simply split the center back and Rodri, his first touch is poor, and he allows Reinders to step in to win possession, and that halts a great Arsenal attack that could have led to a legitimate goal scoring opportunity. So what you end up seeing here is that against a deep block in tight spaces, his link pass isn't very good, and in terms of him being an all-round center forward, when he's tasked with being the creator to play teammates breaking in behind, he simply lacks that execution to play in those teammates, and that's an area that he can work on because there are several scenarios where he receives that ball with his back to goal and he simply fails to play the final pass towards his teammates. And then lastly, I think the biggest issue that we witness with Gyokeres is how he approaches deliveries in towards the penalty area, and he doesn't do a very good job of getting separation from the defender that's marking him, nor does he attack balls with an intent to score goals. It's an odd thing to explain, but when you look at some of the examples that we witness, you see Gyokeres' initial run breaking in towards the penalty area, but as he looks to attack the ball, he's simply in no position to get a good shot off on goal. If you look to an example from over the weekend where you see Trossard playing the ball over the top for Declan Rice's run in towards the left channel, from here Declan Rice should be playing a ball across a 6-yard box for a simple Gyokeres tap-in, but focus on Gyokeres' movement. Initially, he's ahead of the center back and should be breaking freely towards the 6-yard area to tap the ball in, but even with a step ahead of the center back, when that ball is played in, it doesn't even reach the 6-yard area, and you could see that the defender's already getting across him, and by the time the ball gets towards Gyokeres, there's enough pressure to ensure that he can't even make contact with the delivery that Rice plays in towards that zone. Against Newcastle, once again, it's Rice making a run in towards that half space, and you can see that Gyokeres is goal side of the center back, and from here he should be using his strength to break free towards the 6-yard area for a tap-in, and when Rice is looking to deliver the cross in towards the box, you can see that the center back is able to get level with Gyokeres, and although Rice's delivery doesn't get near Gyokeres or the center back, by the time that ball is played and blocked, you can see that the center back has done enough to ensure that Gyokeres is no longer goal side of him and would not make good contact with the delivery. If you look to another example, it's a timber cross from the right hand side against Athletic Club, and you can see that the center back is ball watching, so Gyokeres should be making a free dart towards a 6-yard area for a simple nod in. However, as that delivery is played in, you could see that the center back is in no man's land, but focus on Gyokeres' positioning. He's gained little to no separation from the center back, and with Gorosabo looking to break across to halt Gyokeres' impact with the ball, you could see that Gyokeres is already setting up for a diving header, and rather than positioning himself to get a free header on goal, the diving effort allows the right back to get across to apply enough pressure to ensure that he can't get a clear header on goal, and he ends up guiding the ball wide of the net. And then if you look to another example against West Ham, it's Odegaard playing a ball free into right half space for Saka running off his marker, and when Saka receives the ball in right half space, you could see that Gyokeres is goal side of the center back, and Saka does a very good job of splitting two West Ham defenders to play the ball in towards Gyokeres, but rather than attacking Saka's pullback clear on, look at his positioning when he does receive the ball, and that's simply no manner in which he's going to attempt to beat the goalkeeper from that position, and ultimately West Ham are able to clear their lines. So as you can see, Gyokeres' initial months have provided elements of optimism in certain aspects of Arsenal's growth in the final third, but along with his goal tally, there are clear basic individual fundamental traits that he must improve to bolster Mikel Arteta's side's title chances this season.